Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Apartment Department, the podcast for multifamily marketers by multifamily marketers. Today, we are going to continue with our key performance indicator discussion because we have one that Chris has been really focused on for a long time, and he's really seen success using this as a KPI to drive activity on site. And so I was hoping today that he can tell us more about this magical KPI, which is average follow-up. So Chris, tell us a little bit about average follow-up.
Hi, Ann. Yeah, so average follow-up to me is an operational KPI that I've brought over to marketing. And it's one of those KPIs that maybe not everybody's thinking about from a marketing standpoint because they're like, hey, is marketing really affecting the follow-up piece of it, right? But when I started digging into this number, it tells the whole story. So let's just back up. Average follow-up, I'm tracking how many times our LCs, our leasing consultants, are following up with their prospects. And when I first started looking at this number, it was under 1 follow-up per prospect. And
that's bad, right?
Yeah, that's bad. Well, in my opinion, that was bad.
I'm just kidding. That doesn't sound good.
So the reason why I started to think about this was I looked at this number, it was under 1. And then I went out and I was shopping our comps, and I do that pretty regularly just to see what's going on. And I shop as a prospect. And you know what I found when I went out and shopped the comps, Ann? Okay, nobody called me, nobody followed up with email. Every once in a while I'll get a promotional email because I'm in their database. But there was no personal touch. It was almost like I came in, they did their tour, and then I left, and that was it. I was in the abyss, and they were just hoping that I would follow up. Well, our properties sit on these apartment rows where there's 8, sometimes 8 comps sitting right on the same street. And so as you came in as a prospect, you're going to visit all of these, whether you found us or found them. It doesn't really matter, right? But if you're looking for an apartment and all these apartments are in the same area, of course, you're going to stop in and see what's going on and compare pricing. And so that's why I went back and looked at our average follow-up and saw that it was low. So I really wanted to push our teams to follow up more and get our follow-up to a 3. That's what our company average is. And we ran some contests to do it. And now we sit in that 2.75 to 3.2 range if I look at it on a monthly clip. So we've done our job and we've done it. And we've learned how to follow up with our prospects. And guess what? We've created our own traffic. So now all of a sudden, they might, some properties might be saying, hey, it's really slow, or hey, we're not getting traffic. What's going on? Some of these properties, I just can't spend as much money as I can at others. And when they start doing their follow-up, all of a sudden they've created this traffic, even on lost prospects. They're calling them back and saying, hey, we got great specials right now, or we have a vacant that fits your needs. And they're doing their regular follow-up. And so all of a sudden they've created their own traffic from the leads that are in the system, which leads me to why I started looking at this. Sometimes marketing is not the department that needs to spend more money. Sometimes there's plenty of leads in the system. If marketing is sending 200 leads a month, that's more than enough leads for a property to, if they're doing proper follow-up, to get traffic in the door. And so we started looking at that, and I started tying my spend to the average follow-up. And operations started bringing it into the meeting and telling them, hey guys, I can go spend 10% more, $500 more, whatever the number is. But at the end of the day, the teams aren't following up with the traffic that they're already getting. And so once I had a couple of those conversations, operations was on board. And so we tied our marketing to the follow-up number. And so if the teams aren't doing their follow-up, then we're not necessarily just going to start spending more money if traffic is slow. If they are doing their follow-up, then absolutely, we're going to do whatever we need to do as a marketing team to drive them more traffic. And that includes spending more money. But it was just an interesting KPI if you think about it in general for marketing to kind of lead the charge on it, because it's more of an operational KPI. But now marketing, we've intertwined it. And that's why I really love this metric, because you can easily have a conversation with the executives or easily have a conversation with asset management and operations and justify not spending more money because you can see what the teams are actually doing. And I know we've talked a lot about that, Ann, but that's kind of why I think this is a magical KPI and one that I've just really focused on.
I think that's unbelievable. And I think you're doing a couple things. You're differentiating yourself from your competition, right? So you saw yourself that you were shopping properties, and you weren't getting follow-up or hardly any follow-up. So one, by requiring your leasing consultants to meet a threshold of follow-ups, you're differentiating yourself. Two, you're drumming up free traffic, basically, because it's already been paid for. It's already a sunk cost. I think that's interesting too, because I don't know about you, but we use Apartment List and we get a lot of canceled traffic into our CRM, because basically how Apartment List works is if you like a property or put it on your wish list, in some cases, Apartment List is still nurturing that prospect, but a guest card is created, at least in our CRM, as canceled. And so that's a whole list of people that the leasing consultants could be following up on, while Apartment List is also following up with them. So that would be an easy win. I would say, gosh, about 70% of the guest cards from them are canceled. So I think this is just really fascinating. And then I love the idea, too, of tying it to spend, because I would imagine that when you see lower follow-ups at a property, your lead to lease conversion rate is probably also lower as well. So it's most likely tied, and then you're probably seeing a higher cost per lease. And so all of those factors, if you're just going to spend more money, well, you're still going to have a lower conversion rate. You're still going to have a higher cost per lease, and you're not doing the right thing for the overall NOI of the property. How are you tracking the number of follow-ups? How do you look at that number, and are you looking at it on a property level only, or are you looking at it on an agent level as well?
That's a great question. So the way that our system works, I can do both, but I don't look at it at a property level because there are some people on the property that I don't expect to do follow-ups. Quite frankly, I don't expect the manager to have a high follow-up number. They have a lot going on. They need to be dealing with residents. They have staff. They need to get involved in collections, making sure the property looks good, doing reports for us at corporate, whatever it may be. So I break the number down, and I look at the people that should be doing the follow-ups, which are our leasing consultants, and I take an average of that. So I do my own average of a number, and that's how I determine if the follow-ups are being done. And the reason why I do that is because the leasing, that is their whole job. Their whole job is to lease. Their whole job is to bring traffic in the door. Their whole job is to treat our prospects wonderfully when they walk in. And it's been something that I've been training on for over a year now at my company. How do you treat prospects when they call? How do you treat them when they walk in the door? It's starting to finally click because they understand that it costs a lot of money to bring these people in the door. I've shared the number with them. I share how much it costs per lead to get somebody in the door. And when you share those numbers, it's eye-opening. It's not like it's a penny per prospect. I'm spending $13 and some change right now to get people in the door if you take all of our ad spend together. And that's a lot. It's a lot of money to be spending to have somebody call you or email you to contact us. And just going back to the Apartment List, yes, Apartment List sends us a lot of leads. That's their whole game.
Yep.
But I will tell you this. In our system, leads get marked lost. I know in most systems, leads can get marked lost, or they're marked however they're marked. But I was at a property that's struggling the other day, and I said, look at all these lost leads. Nobody has followed up with them at all. They all got marked lost for some reason. It may not have been you. It could have been somebody else. It doesn't really matter. I told them, I was sitting right there. Start calling them. I sit at the front, by the way, when I go to visit properties, and I sit with the leasing people, and I help them on knock, and I help them greet prospects, because to me, that's the best way to learn on what's going on the property when you're out there. Within 5 calls of calling the lost, they got a tour, and they had them scheduled for Friday. And you just never know. People's lives change. Even if they got marked lost and a month ago they weren't looking, now they could be looking again. And so I'm a believer that every lead is a lead until it's absolutely not a lead. And even the people that tell you that they moved somewhere else, well, in 9 months, I'd start following up with them again. And I tell my teams to do that because they are going to be ready to move again, maybe in 9-10 months as their lease comes up. I moved every year for 10 years of my life looking for the best deal when I was a renter by choice. So I know that it's there and I know that people are doing it. And so to me, it's like these leads are never dead. They're never dead. And I'd rather have my teams pester the leads and be annoying than never touch them. I'm on the extreme that I'd rather have somebody unsubscribe or tell us to stop than I am having those leads just sit there and never be followed up with.
No, I agree with you. And I think we've talked about this before too, is that renter behavior is changing. People are looking for the same amount of time that they used to, but the amount of time that they're making a decision in before they have to move has shortened significantly. So you're exactly right that maybe the way that we used to handle leads and considering them lost, it might not be the same now, because people really are. I think it's within like now 23 days or something of moving, they're deciding where they're going to move next. I mean, it's something pretty quick. And so that was my other question, though, is do you kind of have different audience segments, and then are you teaching the leasing consultants to follow up with those segments differently, and how are you defining them? Is it based on kind of last time that they connected with the property, or I don't know, tell me more about the different ways of following up with prospects.
So let me back up and just in our system, a follow-up will count. If you text somebody, that counts as a follow-up. But if you text them 3 times, that only counts as 1. For it to count as 3 follow-ups.
Oh, medium, like,
day,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, medium.
Okay.
So in our system, 1 follow-up counts per median. So if you text somebody, that's 1 follow-up. If you text and call, that's 2. And if you text, call, and email, that's 3. So that's how you get to that number. If you call 3 times, it only counts as 1. So first and foremost, I'm teaching them to do all of the follow-up together when they follow up with that person. And then I'm teaching them to be personal and make their follow-up as personal as they can. So thank you for coming in. Thank you for contacting us. I enjoyed the tour. It was nice talking to you on the phone. Whatever the conversation was, follow up that way. As far as segmenting it out, we are just going to start that in the next couple of months with a program that we're bringing on, where it actually, our CRM is going to tell us how to contact that person and what time to contact that person. And that's going to be really fun to test. So it's going to tell us we should call this person at 12:02. Don't text them, don't email them, and make sure you do it this way and at this time, because we know from patterns that this is the best time to reach this person. And the system is going to tell us, hey, even though you have a hot lead at the top, it's really not your hottest lead. You need to follow up with this lead instead, and it'll have a little fire icon next to it, because of patterns that have been studied over the history of follow-ups. So it's going to be really cool to implement that system and really segment it out that much. Currently, we're just going down the list. We're looking at the ones that haven't been touched, which is color-coded, so you know right away, like, this person hasn't been followed up with, and they need to be. If you're in the green, you're good. If you're in the red, it's not, right? And then we also have red leads that are broken out. But with this new system that we're bringing on in the next couple months, AI technology is going to take over and actually do the hard work for us. So I'm pretty excited about that. As you know, we both like technology. So anything to make our jobs easier or the team's jobs easier, I'm all about it.
So will the technology only be, I'm fascinated. So it sounds like really it's like immediate follow-up based on recent activity, and then almost trying to bring leads back from the dead, for lack of a better term, like if there's a certain amount of inactivity. And so with that latter part and the new technology you're bringing on board, is the AI also sending the follow-up, making the phone call, sending the email, sending the text, or is it only flagging who should be followed up with based on...
Yeah.
Okay, so the leasing...
It's flagging.
Okay.
But the way that the system is going to work is it'll be all tied into everything. And so with all the data that's been out there for the millions and millions of prospects through the CRM that we use, they've been gathering this program. They built it to gather all this data and tell you, based on how the individual found us and all the other history that we have, it's going to tell you how this person should be followed up with. It's going to be really cool. I mean, just to be able to have that at your fingertips, to know, it kind of flips it upside down, because it's not necessarily the last person who came in through our CRM. It's going to be ordered in how this person's behavior matched all these other people's behavior, and this is how they need to be followed up with in order to have the best success rate. So to answer your original question, right now I'm just training follow-up. I mean, that's hard enough to get the teams to do it. And so I don't really care how they do it. But when we bring in this new technology, that's going to make it a little bit easier for them too.
Okay. No, I mean, it all sounds amazing. And I think you're right that they're different strategies. One is that kind of immediate when people are coming in. And then the other is how can you use data that's already in your CRM to re-engage prospects that maybe, I love that. We've done that before, knowing, okay, if someone signed a lease somewhere else, they're most likely starting to look again. So let's at least remind them about our property. We do a lot of bulk communication in that sense, though. We're not necessarily having our leasing consultants individually. And so I think this is fascinating in terms of having it be more personal as opposed to what we've been doing from a bulk standpoint. But I think what everyone would want to know is, how has focusing on average follow-up from like a metric standpoint, how has it impacted your business?
So we'll start with the most obvious. It created traffic and leases.
Okay.
And it's funny, I'm in a group chat with all the community managers, and we ring the bell every time somebody gets an application in the group chat to celebrate success. And it's really funny when you talk to them and they say the follow-up is working, our teams are getting traffic back in the door. We've generated leases. I mean, last year, as an example, we increased our leasing by 10% when we started focusing on follow-up. But I think the biggest part of all of this is how it affects our marketing spend. And for those of you who have been listening to our podcast, you know that Ann and I like to pull levers in real time. And so using this as a metric to be able to pull those levers in real time is great. It can drive spending more money and justifying it. And it can also have the discussion where it's like, hey, let's pull the reins back. We're not going to spend a bunch of money if you can't follow up with the leads that you're already getting. And so by looking at this metric, we're able to have a better control over our whole marketing program and spend. And it's easy to justify to the executives, which is something that me and you have talked about a lot. And the whole point of KPIs is to have these discussions to say, yes, we should be spending more money. If the teams are following up and it's just a tough leasing season like it is right now, we have a lot of competition and demand is down, then yeah, we should probably spend a little bit more money to get these prospects in our door along with the follow-up. Because if you do both, then they're going to be more inclined to rent from you. And it's all tied into leasing. I tell the leasing teams all the time, people, when they come into your door, they're not leasing the apartment. If there's 5 competitors on your block, you guys all are going to be the same. Yes, the renovations might differ a little bit and the amenities might differ a little bit, but they're all looking at the same product. They're going to lease from you.
Yes.
And absolutely. So if you're following up from them and you're nice to them when they come in the door and you're nice to them on the phone and you're nice during your follow-up, then they're going to be more inclined than the person who's not nice to them or the ones that aren't following up. And so we're using the metric as follow-up, but it turns into your whole leasing experience basically and how prospects are treated when they come through the door. And it's a whole program. And this is just one little piece of it. But to answer your question, it's another metric for me on how I want to spend my money in the department. And I love to spend money, Ann, but but all of us in this industry can tell you there's no point in spending more money if you're not taking advantage of the people that are already contacting you. And so that's the whole point of this metric, is to say, hey, I'm the first one to go jack up our marketing spend. But at the end of the day, if you're getting a bunch of leads and you're not following up, can we please follow up with what we got first? Because now we're just wasting money.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think there's nothing more powerful than a marketing department saying, no, I want to spend money strategically, and putting more money into this property when there are operational concerns is not the best use of our money. This is reminding me, this is not multifamily related, but years ago, I've done a lot of work with franchise systems, and years ago we were doing marketing for a training gym. Like, it wasn't just a gym. You would go and you would get personal training. And I had some of the owners say to me, I'm not getting any leads. You're doing this marketing for me and I'm not getting any leads. And on my end, I was seeing a bunch of leads. So I was like, that's weird. I'm seeing leads. Well, we had call tracking in place. And so I went back and I listened to all of the phone calls within, let's say a month period, right? Just for a data set. And what I found was that during business hours, 45% of the phone calls weren't being answered. And I could tell that because I, looked at the analytics and listened to the phone calls. And so I went back to them and I said, we're sending you phone calls that are not being answered. And so we had a marketing and operational disconnect. And, we worked on fixing that, but this reminds me a lot about what you're saying is just, marketing and operations working together and looking at these numbers, and they're not siloed. They work together nicely. And so I love that you've taken this KPI, something that's simple, something that's easy, something that's sometimes overlooked, and you've made it the star of your show, and you're seeing the benefit of that.
And I'll just add this, and it gives marketing trust.
Yes.
In my opinion, it gives the marketing department trust, and it elevates us when you look at numbers like this that are operational, but can also be crossed over to marketing or throughout the company. It gives you trust to go into these meetings and say, I'm not just looking at occupancy, or I'm not just looking at the number of leads, because that doesn't tell the whole story. And when you can have trust, then all of a sudden you can have these conversations and you can be at the table discussing, because now they trust you, they trust the marketing department. And I think it goes to the overall success on how you can communicate with the executives and some of the other departments, because they all understand these numbers. And so it's not just total marketing spend, it's not just occupancy, it's not just number of leads. Now all of a sudden it's like, hey, yes, we look at all of this, but here's this one that tells us what's going on property. And so for me, that's helped me be successful, because I can have these conversations where a lot of marketing professionals aren't. And that's why we are talking about this so much in these KPIs, is so that we can help our other peers in the industry have these conversations and build that trust.
Yep. If you are speaking the same language as, marketing metrics often seem like a black hole. Actually, I was having this discussion the other day I'm in a marketing networking group, and we were talking about what metrics do you share within your company in order to show what marketing is doing. And as marketers, we have to be very deliberate about not only the metrics that we're sharing, but also then understanding what's important to the rest of the company and what language other departments might be speaking. And so by bridging the gap here and marketing speaking the language that operations is speaking, you're right, you're building trust. You're not just talking marketing jargon and confusing everyone, but it's real, tangible. And I think this is wonderful. Do you have anything else, any words of wisdom about average follow-up you want to share before we say goodbye to our listeners?
All I would say is, if you're going to go down this path, you need to own it, and you need to help train. That's one thing that I do, is I go on site, I train them, or I talk to them on the phone, or however it is. But you have to keep it top of mind, and you have to be willing to get your hands dirty and get into the weeds a little bit for change to happen. So I would just say, if you're going to go down this path, it's not just looking at a number from the corporate office. You have to own it and train it and tell the teams why it's important. And that's what I'll end at. And when you do that, you'll have success. And as always, it's been great. I'm glad we get to have these conversations and share some of our secrets that have been successful for us.
Good as always, great as always, and thank you everyone for listening to the Apartment Department, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.